This moment could heal what no one sees. Your heart carries burdens hidden even from your own awareness. You walk through the day, surrounded by invisible weight, wounds inflicted by the past, pain left unresolved, fear that silently drains your spirit. What if I told you right now God is offering a path to restoration that can begin in this very moment? But beware. Distraction, pride, or hesitation can blind you, letting these wounds fester, multiplying guilt and emotional suffering. The urgency is real. Every second you remain unaware, the cycle continues, keeping you trapped in shame and emptiness. Psalm 121 reminds us, "The Lord watches over you. He does not slumber, even when you feel abandoned." Yet this protection is activated when you intentionally engage, when you recognize the void, when you admit your need for his healing touch. Moses knew this tension. In moments of despair, he understood that surrender and acknowledgement were the keys to divine alignment and protection. Ask yourself, what if ignoring this moment means walking another day carrying the same invisible burdens? What if the restoration you seek is just one act of faith away, and hesitation allows fear to claim what could be renewed? This is not merely a reflection. This is a crossroads. Your spirit, your inner self, is calling for recognition. The unseen battlefield of the heart is real, and it demands attention before it dictates the course of your life. You may feel overwhelmed, afraid, unsure where to start. That is why this moment is urgent. Scarcity is not only in wealth or opportunity, it is in time, in the present chance to engage God's protection and restorative power. Fear can either paralyze or propel you. Let it propel you. Let this first step, the act of recognizing your wounds and seeking alignment with God's care, ignite a chain of healing and clarity. The path ahead requires honesty. It demands that you acknowledge the void within, admit where pride or fear has blocked healing, and open your heart to divine intervention. Only then can Psalm 121 become more than words, a living promise of inner restoration, protection, and empowerment. Today, the unseen, the unspoken, the hidden within you can be lifted. Today is your moment of awakening, of renewal, of alignment. Prepare your heart, lift your eyes, listen with your soul. What you do with this moment will determine whether these wounds continue to define you or whether they will finally become the starting point of your spiritual and emotional rebirth. Yet my wounds whisper unhealed. You are alive, breathing, moving, performing the routines of daily life, but inside, your heart whispers secrets of pain you rarely acknowledge. Being alive does not guarantee restoration, and existence without awareness leaves your spirit vulnerable to the weight of unresolved wounds. Moses walked through his own deserts, feeling the loneliness, doubt, and exhaustion that come from carrying burdens unseen. Yet it was in the recognition of his struggle that God's guidance began to manifest. Psalm 121 reminds us that the Lord's eyes are upon us, watching, waiting, yet intervention often requires our engagement. To exist without acknowledging your wounds is to drift through life under invisible pressure, subject to the same cycles of fear, guilt, and shame that continue to sap your strength. The urgency here is profound. Each day you ignore the whispers of your inner self. The longer those wounds persist, embedding patterns that blind you to God's restorative touch. Imagine the tension. Your spirit calls out for healing, but you move forward as if unaware. Anxiety lingers, arising from past pain, fear of vulnerability, and uncertainty about where to begin. The emotional weight is not abstract. It manifests as hesitation, inner conflict, and the quiet erosion of joy. This is the void you must recognize, the emptiness created not by circumstance, but by inattention to God's invitation for restoration. Here is where faith begins its work. Awareness of the hidden wounds is the first act of surrender. Moses' path teaches that true alignment begins with honesty, acknowledging your frailty, your need for God's touch, and your desire to be restored. Without this recognition, every prayer, every effort, every step risks being shallow, lacking the transformative depth God intends. This is more than acknowledgement, it is an awakening. It's the conscious choice to no longer allow past pain to dictate the present, to confront the silent erosion of hope, and to permit divine eyes to shine on what you have hidden from yourself. The first step toward inner healing is this: to see yourself fully, accept your wounds, and allow the Lord's watchful care to begin the process of restoration. Your heart is calling. Do you hear it? This is the moment where existence shifts from mere survival to intentional awakening. The path of healing begins with recognition, and your spirit is ready. Therefore, I perceive the void, the silence that speaks. There is a silence within your soul, a space that life's noise has attempted to cover, but which cannot be ignored. It is in this void that the truth of your wounds, your fears, and your unspoken longings rise quietly, yet insistently, demanding attention. Moses knew this silence intimately during his wilderness years, the moments where the earth seemed barren, the path unclear, and the hours endless. Yet, it was in this emptiness that God's presence moved unseen, shaping, preparing, and refining. Psalm 121 reminds us that even in the valley of quiet despair, protection and guidance are already at work. The void is not a punishment, it is a threshold. It is the pause before transformation, the stillness that calls you to awaken. Many fear this silence because it mirrors the depths of their pain, the failures they carry, and the burdens they hide. But avoiding the void only prolongs suffering. The silence is speaking, whispering truths you have been too afraid to hear. I see your brokenness. I know your struggles. I am here to restore you. When you step into it, the fear of emptiness becomes the birthplace of hope. For God meets you exactly where your heart feels most fragile. Feel the weight of your unresolved grief, your regrets, your shame, but do not turn away. The void is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility. Every tear shed, every confession, every whispered cry in the quiet becomes a seed planted for your healing. Moses did not emerge from the wilderness unchanged. He was formed in the silence. Similarly, your void is fertile ground for renewal. Your heart may tremble, your spirit may resist, yet in embracing this sacred emptiness, you invite divine intervention. Here, clarity begins to rise like the morning sun over the darkest valleys of your soul. The void speaks. Will you listen? Will you step forward and allow God to fill the silence with restoration, courage, and peace? This is the threshold where inner healing starts, where your wounded soul can begin to feel the gentle yet transformative touch of the Father. Therefore, I recognize my brokenness when pride blocks healing. Admitting your brokenness is not a defeat, it is the first step toward true restoration. Too often the walls we build around our hearts are made of pride, shame, and fear. We tell ourselves we are strong, that we can endure, that the wounds will fade on their own. But this is an illusion. Moses knew the weight of inner struggle. He experienced moments of doubt and hesitation, yet in recognizing his limitations and confronting his own failures, he became a vessel through which God could move powerfully. Psalm 121 teaches that God watches over us, not to punish, but to protect, guide, and heal. When pride blocks your acknowledgement of pain, it also blocks the healing hand of God. The injuries you carry, emotional, spiritual, relational, demand attention, not denial. Do you feel the tension within? The persistent echo of unresolved grief, guilt, or fear? These are the signals that your spirit longs for restoration. Facing your brokenness can awaken fear, fear of change, fear of vulnerability, fear of what others might see. But it is in vulnerability that God pours strength, in honesty that God brings peace, and in surrender that the first rays of healing touch your soul. Moses' journey reminds us that healing requires confronting reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Accepting brokenness does not mean you remain shattered. It means you are opening the door for divine alignment and transformation. Every tear, every confession, every moment of honest self-reflection is a step toward release. Psalm 121 assures us that our help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, who will never let the foot of his child stumble. Brokenness, when recognized and surrendered, becomes the gateway to resilience, faith, and clarity. It is the point where fear can be transformed into hope, where shame is replaced with courage, and where despair becomes fertile soil for spiritual renewal. Will you let God meet you here in your deepest need and allow him to remake what pride and pain have held captive for so long? This acknowledgement is not weakness. It is the activation of your path to wholeness, the turning point where healing begins in earnest. Therefore, I cry out for restoration, activating God's healing touch. When the heart finally admits its need, it must reach upward, cry aloud, and invite the touch of the divine. Moses' prayers were never casual words. They were intentional calls to align his spirit with God's power, guidance, and restoration. Psalm 121 reminds us that the Lord watches over his children, that his eyes are upon the weary, the wounded, and the wandering, ready to act in protection and renewal. Now imagine for a moment that every unspoken cry, every hesitation, every doubt is answered when you lift your gaze and speak your heart to him. The act of prayer is not passive. It is a spiritual activation. Each word, each declaration, each honest expression is a step toward receiving the fullness of restoration. The wounds that have kept you from peace, the scars that have weighed you down, the fears that have whispered lies about your worth, they can all begin to transform here. But it requires courage to cry out, to face the discomfort of vulnerability, to let go of the illusion that you can heal alone. There is a scarcity in time. The longer wounds are ignored, the more entrenched they become, and the opportunity to experience God's immediate intervention diminishes. This moment right now is the threshold. You are called to write a prophetic phrase, to declare your readiness for healing, to open the channels for God's grace to flow. Feel the hope that surges as you recognize his presence enveloping you. The relief is tangible. The empowerment is real. When the first step of surrender is taken, the soul breathes, the spirit lifts, and clarity emerges where confusion once reigned. Moses' example illuminates this truth. When we actively engage with God in our need, when we speak with faith and intention, we become conduits of his healing power. Your past does not dictate your future. The brokenness you once hid can now be transformed into resilience, wisdom, and a deep, abiding sense of restoration. Psalm 121 calls you, and Moses shows the path. Align, cry out, and step into the healing that God has already prepared for you. Therefore, I am fulfilled. When healing becomes a new path, fulfillment is not merely a fleeting feeling. It is a spiritual alignment, a profound peace that emerges when the soul is restored and the wounds of yesterday no longer dictate the journey ahead. Moses, after seasons of struggle, confusion, and wilderness testing, discovered that true restoration begins with surrender and intentional connection with God. Psalm 121 illustrates this ongoing protection and guidance, promising that the Lord is the constant watcher over your life, ensuring that the steps taken by the healed and the faithful are never alone. Imagine walking forward with the weight of pain lifted, the chains of guilt broken, and a clarity that allows you to see your purpose illuminated. Every breath becomes a declaration of victory, every action an expression of the soul that has been renewed. The scars of yesterday transform into badges of resilience and testimonies of divine grace. In this moment, you are invited to act, Write a prophetic phrase declaring your commitment to embrace restoration fully and engage with the community. Like and subscribe so that others too may be drawn into God's transformative work. Your healing is not just personal, it is a ripple effect of hope and strength. As the Lord's Prayer concludes this sacred act, your spirit is sealed in renewal. Fear and uncertainty no longer dictate your path. They are replaced by confidence, courage, and divine alignment. Each step forward is guided, each decision illuminated by the presence of God who sees, protects, and nurtures the heart. Moses' journey teaches that inner healing is a process, a discipline, and a calling. It requires acknowledgement of need, active engagement, and faith in God's sustaining power. Now the new path opens before you, lined with peace, clarity, and the assurance that the soul once wounded is now alive, vibrant, and ready to fulfill the purpose for which it was created.